Good afternoon, grade 4s, and welcome to Natural Science, week 7. It is Friday today. My name is Mrs. de Klerk, and I am your natural science teacher. Okay, guys, I would just want to remind you to please keep your camera switched off and keep your chats related to our topic. Okay. Let's quickly recap on what we did yesterday. Yesterday, we looked at the basic structure of plants. We looked at their roots, their stems, the leaves, their flowers, and their seeds. And then we looked at the role all of these structures play. Today, we are going to look at the structure of animals. I see the chat box flickering, so let me just see what you guys, you want me to tell you before I move to the next one, I will do so. All living things can be grouped into two groups, either plants or animals. You remember yesterday we compared some plants and they can be compared using different plant structures to group them into different groups, right? So you can look at the stems, or you can look at the roots, or you can look at the leaves and how it is the same or how it changes. And then you can divide them into different groups. Okay, now we can use a similar method to compare animals. I'm going to move to the next slide now. Okay. I want you to look at two photos I'm going to show you now. One is a dog and one is of jellyfish. Now I want you guys, it seems like, wow, they're very different. But if we want to look at differences and similarities in a scientific way, we need to look at the different structures of an animal and compare it to each other. So if you look at these two, what do you notice that is the same? I'm not speaking about exactly looking the same, but what do both of them have? For example, let me just change this into a laser pointer. What does a dog have that a jellyfish has? What do you guys think? A tail? Good. What would you say if you had to compare a head maybe, or the way they move? Do they both have legs, or is it different? Do they both have a jaw maybe, or a beak, or a, well, neither of them have a beak, but do they have a jaw? Do they have a mouth? What is the same about them and what is different about them? The brain. Okay, good. But what else can you see? What do you see in the picture? You don't just have to write down things that are similar. You can write down things that are different as well. What do you notice about eyes and ears and the senses and the way that they move? What's different about the way that they move? How does a dog move and how does a jellyfish move? Good. A dog has legs, a jellyfish doesn't. Right. Let's move on to the next slide. We are going to look at the basic structure of animals. Now, when I prepared this lesson for you, I looked at a lot of different pictures, and I want to encourage you to do the same. If you take screenshots of these slides, you'll see there's a lot of writing today, but I want you to go look up the animals that we are talking about. The basic structure of an animal head, the tail, the body, limbs, and sense organs. Okay. That's eyes and ears and things that they sense with. So where we were looking at the plant, remember we had different structures there as well. And it was the roots and the stem and the fruit and the seed and the leaves. Now, when we look at the basic structure of an animal, it's the head, the tail, the body, the limbs, and sense organs, their senses. We are going to move to the next slide now. Okay, firstly, we are going to look at a head. Guys, please switch your cameras off. Okay. Animals all have a special part in their bodies called their head. I know all of you know that. And even the smallest animal has a part where its brain is. Now, again, when I prepared for this lesson, I went to go look at all different pictures of the brains of animals and I compared them to humans. Again, I want to encourage you guys to go Google. You can type in different brains of animals and then you will see how big the elephant's brain is. And then you can even see how very tiny a mouse's brain is. And it's amazing to think if I want you to go look at your pet at home and look at their head and just imagine how small the brain must be to fit in there in some of these animals. Okay, most animals, their head has a brain, doesn't matter how small. In the head, we also have sensory organs like the eyes and the ears. And you know that usually animals' sensory organs are much better developed than ours. You'll see and you'll notice that your dog can hear a lot of things even before you hear anything. Or the eyes, if you even think about an owl's eyes, they're big and they can see far, and an eagle and a hawk, they need to be able to see rodents even if they are up there in the sky. And then the head also has feeding structures. That will be the mouth and the jaws. Sorry, we are moving on to the next slide. Are you all still with me? Okay. That's fine, Gabriel. Let's move on to the next slide. Now we are going to look at a tail, and you would never believe how much a tail means to an animal. A lot of different animals have a lot of, their tails do different things. So we are going to look at a couple of these. I also went to go Google pictures of these and different tails of animals, and I was sitting in front of my computer literally for hours because I couldn't believe I was reading more and more about these animals and how they use their tails and what the tails are for. It's incredible. Okay, most animals have a tail at the back end of their body, and the tail is often pointed, but it can have many other shapes as well. Oh, I'm sorry. We are going to the next slide. Let's quickly look at this picture. Now look at all the different tails of these animals. What does a chameleon use his tail for? Why is it rounded like that? You guys can type some comments in your chat box now. What can you tell me about all of these tails? I'm going to tell you something just now, but I want to know what you think. Why do you think a chameleon's tail looks like this? And what can a crocodile do with his tail? Later, we are going to speak about all of these animals. And a kangaroo? Why is a kangaroo's tail important? You can type anything in the chat box about any of the tails that you see here if you want to say something about it. This is a whale. What whales? Why is a whale's tail important? And a peacock. This is a male peacock. Why is its tail? What does it do with its tail? And the squirrel even. Yes, Nakwanda, you're right. The tail of the crocodile helps him to catch food. Absolutely. We know that all the tails are different, but they also have different functions. We're going to read about some of those functions now. Tails help animals to move and swing in trees, like a monkey. That is quite amazing if you watch National Geographic Kids and you look at those monkeys swinging in the trees, how amazing it is how they use their tails to move and to swing. Okay, remember in that picture there, you saw a kangaroo. Now, kangaroo can use their tail to balance while they jump, for example. And again, I watched photos of these kangaroos. That tail has incredible muscles in. It's almost as if they can stand on it. But when they jump, go notice when you watch them that they use this tail for balance. Even when they play, you know, they box with their friends. You should notice how the tail balances them when they play like that. An animal can also use its tail to kill their prey. And one of you mentioned that before now, if we look at crocodiles. Like a crocodile, I don't know if you guys want to see or hear this. A crocodile will use its tail to spin its prey around and around in the water, and then they drown their prey. And that's how they use their tail to kill their prey. Then another one is a scorpion. You know that some scorpions are poisonous, and they also have poison in their tails, and their tails bend forward. Okay, so that's how they can also use their tail to kill their prey. The next one is a beaver. I don't know if you've ever seen a beaver's tail. It is flat, and it is hard, and it is wide. Okay, so a beaver uses its tail to pat down hard ground to make it solid, because remember, they also use it to build their homes. Go look it up after this lesson. Go Google a beaver's tail. And then, of course, some animals will use a tail to swim. All fish will use a tail to swim. Okay, we are going to move on to the next slide where we will continue speaking about tails. There are so many examples. Okay, tail can also help an animal to steer their movement. If you think of a dolphin, dolphins move really fast and they swim with the current, but they need to be able to move and steer, right? Guys, please switch your cameras off. Sharks also do that, and whales. And they use it as a rudder to steer them in a certain direction, just like a boat. And then birds' tails can do the same. They are very important rudders as well. Then here is what one of you said. Was it you, Zinzi? I don't know who said this. Let me see if I can see quickly. Zelu. Yes. Yes. Jodo, you as well. You guys are right. A peacock is a perfect example of an animal that uses its tail to attract a mate. Now you will notice that the beautiful, colorful peacock that does that is the male, not the female. The female is actually quite dull. She is not colorful at all, because it is the male's job to attract the female, and that is why his tail is so colorful and beautiful. So when you see one like that, you know it's a male, and when you see a dull brownish one, you'll know it is a female. Some animals use their tails to keep themselves warm. Now, I looked at pictures of this as well. A very cute example for me was a little squirrel that wraps its tail around himself like a blanket to keep warm. And then a fox, you've seen a fox's tail. It's nice and thick and big. And they will also, when they lie down, will use their tail as a kind of a blanket. One you guys can Google that I think all of you would enjoy is the Arctic fox. It's a white fox because it lives in the snow. I have a little dog. I wish maybe next time I will put up a photo of my dog when we continue to speak about animals, because she looks very much like the Arctic fox. And she is not from South Africa. She is actually from Taiwan, because they breed them there to be able to live in an apartment so that they don't need a lot of space to run around. Beautiful little thing, white as snow. I would love to show you guys, but they also use their tails as kind of a blanket. Maybe next time, remind me, okay, then I will put up a photo of her so you guys can see what she looks like. Her name is Phoebe. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. We are still speaking about tails. Okay, tails. This is one you guys will see often. Tails can help some animals to get rid of flies, especially a cow or a horse. They swish their tails to get rid of flies, and I'm very sure you guys have seen that before. Okay, some animals will use their tails to warn others of possible dangers. An example here is that some deer flash the white underside of their tails to other deer to warn them of possible danger. So that's the way that they communicate with each other, is through their tail. I think that's absolutely amazing. Here's another example of where they communicate, not only warning of trouble, but your dog. Your dog communicates by wagging its tail, right? So if they see you come home from school and they are so happy, what will they do? They will wag their tails. So that is their way of communicating. Do you see the importance that a tail, something for us as small as a tail, has such an important function in nature and in animals? Another absolutely amazing one is the armadillo. The armadillo has an armored tail to protect itself. So it will curl up in a little ball and use its tail to protect itself. Another function of the tail is to distract predators. Like you all know, you've seen a little lizard or a gecko somewhere outside, and if it gets a big fright or if it is attacked, it will drop a part of its tail, but the tail will keep on wriggling because the muscles are still moving, and that gives the little lizard time to get away, or the gecko, while the predator thinks that that tail is the actual thing that he is after. Okay, so don't worry if you by accident give a little lizard a fright and its tail falls off, he is not going to die. It is simply his way of protecting himself and distracting his predators so that he can make a getaway. Okay, its tail will grow back. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now that we've covered the tail, we are going to look at the body of an animal. Remember, we first started with the head, then we moved on to the tail, and the next structure we will be looking at is the body. Okay, now different animals need to cover their bodies in different ways. Body coverings need to protect the animal organs. It needs to protect its bones and its muscles from the environment, just like us as well, to protect it from UV rays, from bumps and scratches, and from germs and bacteria that might cause infection. So the body covering, the hair or whatever its body covering is also there to protect. We're going to look at some of these just now. Then you are going to tell me which body coverings you are going to look at some different animals and tell me what their body coverings are. A warm furry body protects a polar bear in the Arctic, just like a scaly body protects an armadillo and a crocodile. So it depends on where an animal lives also. So God created nature so beautifully that he thought about where every animal would live and what type of body covering they need to be able to survive in those conditions. I'm sorry, guys. For those of you who wanted to take a screenshot, we are going to move on to our next slide. Okay. Some animals need to blend into the environment to either hide from predators or to camouflage themselves, to stop prey from seeing them. So it goes both ways. For example, the lion. The lion's hair or the lion's covering and its mane will sometimes be the same color as the grass, so that the animal they want to eat cannot see them. And then others hide from predators. Can you name an example of something you can think of? Not a lion, because that's the example I used. Okay. You think of any animal that uses its body. An armadillo, Alex, you're asking what is an armadillo? It is, oh, how do I describe that? Do you know what? I am going to make a note here. And I will see if I can find a picture for you. But also I want you to go Google it, because it is quite amazing how it uses its tail to cover itself. Okay. Guys, quickly type in the chat box for me, what other animal do you know that camouflage itself to protect itself from its prey, or one that is the one that wants to catch one? There we go, a jaguar, a tiger, a chameleon, a lizard. Good, those are examples, guys. Okay, let's go on to the next. Here we can see the peacock again. Males often use their body coverings to attract female attention. A peacock boasting with his beautiful tail feathers, or a lion with his mane, is meant to attract females. I would love to know, what do human males do to attract females? They don't have a mane or a beautiful tail. I think in humans, it's the other way around. It's the females who make themselves pretty, right? Wearing earrings and makeup, but in nature, it's the other way around. Okay, we are going to move on to the next slide. We're going to do an activity now together. We're going to look at the body coverings of each animal in the photographs on the next slide. And then we will think about where the animal lives. Okay, so usually a body covering is there for the animal to be able to live where he is. Okay. We're going to answer these questions on a table, and we will answer what does each animal's body covering do for it, and where does the animal live. Okay, here is our first picture, and this is from the Thunderbolt Grade 4 textbook. Now let's look at this animal, a snail. Okay, what type of body covering does a snail have? What body covering does it have? Look at this. And why is that body covering there? Yes, this is shell type. Oh, I'm sorry. It does have a shell and a strong leathery body. Where do snails live? Where do snails live? And I want you guys to participate in this one. I'm seeing some answers coming through. Yes, Zoe, you are right. Protect it. I see you say it lives in the shell. Yes, the shell is the home, but where will you find a snail? That's right, in the garden. Good. In gardens, or in jungles, or forests, some places with lots of vegetation. Okay. The next one we're looking at is an impala. Now, impala's body covering is a hide. Now, where does he live? The last answer I'm seeing here is in the garden. I hope that answer was not for the impala. Grasslands, woods, forest. You are right. Mostly in grasslands. Africa, yes, that is where it lives. Okay, our next one that we're going to look at is a tortoise. Now, a tortoise, similar to the snail, what does it have? What does a tortoise have? A shell, right? And the shell is there for what reason? What's the reason for the shell? To cover it. Yeah, and to protect it, to hide it. Yes, that's right. Okay, these are actually, they are hard scales on the tortoise. Okay. Where does the tortoise live? Here by me, there are a lot of them in the Western Cape. They can be found in grasslands and deserts. Right, guys, we're going to move on to the next slide. We will be looking at some more of these animals. A chimpanzee and an earthworm. What is its body covering? Fur. Good. Hair or fur. And where does a chimpanzee live? Forest, jungle. You guys are right. Smarty class, as always. In the zoo, okay. I want to know its natural habitat, okay. Good. They live in trees, in the jungle, and in the forest. Now let's look at a slimy worm. Have you guys ever played with earthworms before? Okay, an earthworm has a soft, moist skin. And where will you find them? Why does it need a soft, moist skin? In the sand, ground holes, grasslands. You will find them under the ground, you are right. In the garden, you are right. In the sand, you are right. You will find them in soil. Let's continue to the next picture. Okay, here we have a goldfish and penguins. Okay. A goldfish is covering scale, a leathery, waterproof skin. You are absolutely right when you say scales, yes. Okay. Where does he live? That's an easy one. Not in the sea, guys, because this is a goldfish. Okay. Yes, and so you are closer to the answer, in a tank. You find goldfish in cold, fresh water. You don't find them in salt water. It's not a sea fish. They live in cold, fresh water. Okay. Next one. Penguin. What can you tell me about a penguin's body covering? Feathers. You are right. Thick, warm, waterproof feathers. I'm quite fond of penguins. Here by me, I am part of a penguin rescue team. And when penguins end up in our water here, they're not supposed to be here. So then we know something went wrong and we rescue them. And usually there is something wrong. They might have been bitten by a seal or something isn't right with their feet. They get healed and then we place them back in the water and they will swim to where they are supposed to go. It's an absolutely amazing journey to see and to walk with them. While they are there at the penguin rehab, we also have to feed them fish. And they get quite angry if you don't feed them quick enough. They'll even bite you. Okay. Live in the sea in cold areas. Okay, we are going to move on to the next slide. Whales and seals. I can tell you stories about these as well because I live by the ocean and I'm part of the SMART group. We rescue sea animals. We have also had to watch a seal for a couple of days before, so that no one and the fishermen don't hurt them because they were shedding. Okay, when we look at a whale, when a seal sheds, we call it molting. Anyway, a whale has soft, slippery skin and it lives under the sea. This is quite an easy one, right? In the ocean, yes. And a seal, it doesn't seem like it. Maybe to you, it seems like the skin is smooth, but it is not. I think maybe just because we always see seals when they are wet, they actually have a thick, hairy skin. And you find them on the shoreline or near the ocean and in the sea. They also like to bask in the sun. Sean, I see you say you want to rescue animals and that I'm lucky. I certainly am, but don't give up on your dream. It's very possible. Okay, the next thing we are going to look at, we will look at limbs. Most animals use their limbs to move with, so do we. Animals can walk and run and climb or swim using their limbs. Some animals, like chimpanzees and squirrels, can use their front or their upper limbs to handle objects. Okay, if we look at the animals we just spoke about, How many different limbs can you see on each animal? Well, if we had to compare them, you'll see that they are all different. And again, here I went and Googled like many different limbs of different animals. And to see the bony structure inside is quite interesting to see how everything differs and why they are there, what the function of all of those limbs are. You guys can go research that and go Google the limbs of the different animals. Okay, animals can have wings or webbed feet if they're in the water, tentacles, fins, legs, arms, flippers, and long, slithery bodies with no limbs, such as the earthworm. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now we are going to speak about the last part, and that is the senses. Remember when we started this class, I said that animal senses are much better developed than ours. Like your dog. Sometimes you'll see at night he starts growling or barking and you absolutely have no idea there's no one there. And that would be because he hears something that you can't even hear. Okay. Sniffer dogs help to find people who are trapped under building rubble or mudslides or in the snow, and they will help the rescue workers to find the victims. Okay. Dogs are quite amazing at doing this. And then these dogs can also smell drugs or bombs, and they will alert the police. And you might have seen them if you've been at the airport sometimes or on a movie maybe. Here they are sniffer dogs at the airport, and they will, if someone had to bring in drugs and they get these sniffer dogs in, they are trained to find the drugs and then to tell or to show their trainers that something is wrong here. Just a couple of other examples of the senses of some animals. If we look at eagles or buzzards or hawks and other birds of prey, they have extremely sharp eyes, the owl as well, because they have to see a small rodent from very far away. Now, elephants, cats, and dogs, they can hear sounds that human ears cannot hear. I mean, have you ever looked at an elephant's ears? They are huge. They have to be able to hear pretty well with them. Bats, dolphins, and some whales use a special sense called echolocation. They send out special sound waves and can find prey or objects from quite far away. You will learn about this as well more intensely later. Butterflies, bees, and earthworms have another special sense called chemoreceptors. They can taste through their skin or their feet. These are all the different senses of the animals, the sense organs. Okay, then animals such as ants or cockroaches or crayfish. The crayfish was also on that picture where we spoke about all the tails. They have special sense receptors that can sense something moving from very far away. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. And that is where I tell you to have a great weekend. Guys, I really want to encourage you to go Google all these animals. Those of you who didn't know what an armadillo is, I'm going to try and see if I can find a picture that I am allowed to show you over the internet of an armadillo, but go Google it. Okay, go Google the functions of tails of an animal. Now, let's quickly just recap what we spoke about. we spoke about the structure of an animal, and we looked at the head. We looked at the tail with its many functions. We looked at the body. Then we looked at limbs. And lastly, we looked at the senses or the sense organs. Okay, so next week we will continue. You guys must have a great weekend. Google all the things I told you to because it's so interesting. Thank you, guys. Zinzi, you said something interesting here. Dog sweat on their tongues. Fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye, you guys. You should have a great weekend as well. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.